This is our Sactown Sports Kings Insider. Brenden, real quick before we go any further in this, can you confirm, because the whole thing was weird, can you confirm when the finger situation happened with De'Aaron?
You know, I heard you guys talking about this, and I didn't get quite enough time to look back.
But it's the whole thing weird, right?
Yeah, it was fairly early. It was very early in the season, and he acknowledged that it's just something that he's going to have to play through and deal with in the off season, whatever that may end up meaning. So I don't remember the exact day, but it was very early in the season.
Was it during a game? Did it happen?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, let me get back to you. I bet you after the break, I'll be able to get back to you there.
So we were talking about De'Aaron and the scoring, and if you do some of the math here, the Kings are winning basketball games, and if you divvy up De'Aaron's 14, doesn't really matter who gets it, you divvy up De'Aaron's 14 and DeMar DeRozan's 32, that's enough to win a basketball game, right? But it's deeper than that when you talk about somebody being a first option and being the leader of a team like De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox lit the beam last night, and Scott Moak asked him, about DeMar DeRozan. He said, that's why we brought him in here. Who is the first option on this team right now for you? And does it matter? Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I actually probably would say that it doesn't really matter. I think that you have two, though, when it comes down to it. You have De'Aaron Fox and you have DeMar DeRozan. And there's certain nights.
Brenden, I said the first. You can't say two.
Well, you said it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
But who is it?
I mean, your number one option on this team is De'Aaron Fox.
Thank you.
It is.
Right now?
Yes. Who do you think is at the top of other team scouting reports?
I think it was De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
Is it still?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, they had Andrew Wiggins guarding De'Aaron Fox last night.
That's true.
Buddy Hield was guarding DeMar DeRozan, Allen. Buddy Hield.
Those were on switches.
No, that's what they started the game on.
Right. Okay. All right.
They had Guy Santos guarding him. Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
Guy Santos actually did a solid job. He did a way better job than Buddy.
This has been a running joke. I literally did not know who that was until yesterday.
Yeah.
He said Guy Santos. I'm like, I straight up don't know who that is.
Guy Santos and Lester Quinones.
Yeah. They were going to save the franchise.
Yeah. Summer League legends.
So you're saying it's still De'Aaron?
I mean, I think it's still De'Aaron just for like what I just talked about. I still think that he's the top of other team scouting reports. And he draws a lot of pressure, in the fourth quarter. He's the one that's going to have the ball in his hands, not solely him. And that's the benefit, obviously, of having DeMar. And why I was going with a cop-out initially is that if DeMar is rolling the way he is, he just scored 19 points in the third quarter, then it is DeMar's the first option for the rest of that game.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or Malik can have his nights. And Domas, I don't think falls into it because he just gets all his points within the flow of everything, I would say, rather than being a go-to option. But I still think that De'Aaron is the player that other teams are most concerned about, I would say, when it comes to getting rolling. This is still the guy that dropped 50-plus twice this year.
Yeah. No, but who didn't play in those games?
Was it DeMar in both of them?
DeMar did not play. I don't think he played in either of them.
Okay.
I'm just saying we haven't seen, and I'm not saying it's winning basketball. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to figure out what to do with De'Aaron Fox right now. And number one, they're winning games. So that's all that really matters. But a night like tonight, I don't want them to just get used to the flow, because this could be a night where DeMar DeRozan, 35 years old, and I'm assuming De'Aaron understands this. DeMar DeRozan, 35 years old, back-to-back. G-Man said the lights went off at 4 a.m. This is a night, we do prop talk. This is a night that I would think that De'Aaron Fox would ball out.
You could see it for sure. They don't have great perimeter defenders, like you mentioned, like Russ. Maybe, I guess they're throwing in there. He always plays well against Russell Westbrook, too, kind of a childhood idol of his. He's mentioned before. I think to your broader question of De'Aaron, I think the first point that you made of like they're winning games is the main thing here, is that I think that we can all reasonably expect that De'Aaron will be better than this. And also this is part of the thing that's been holding him back from being that like superstar level is how consistent are you going to be throughout the course of a year?
Right.
And so this is kind of, I feel like we've grown used to this with De'Aaron, and that's where the next step I think was supposed to come from.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're not still going to have some slower stretches and things like that. He seems to always be dealing with some sort of injury throughout the course of a season, like a lot of guys are. He's not the only one, obviously. But I think that you can count that he's going to be better than this for a lot of games moving forward. And it's not like he's not doing things defensively. The 10 of 10 from the free throw line I thought was pretty big yesterday, even if he was a little chaotic in how he got to the line at times, I guess you would say. But he was effective when he did get there. And I think that you can count that he's going to have bigger nights down the line. And it's kind of, at the same time, good to see him be willing to be like, all right, DeMar's rolling. Let's just keep feeding him.
Here are the two options here, because we'll get texters, sack chatters, callers, and you can look at this two ways, right? The first way to look at this, and I don't want to say one is more surface level and the other one is more this person actually knows ball or whatever you want to call it. But the first way to look at this is there are people that see how De'Aaron, I'm air quoting here, lets the game come to him, and they sit there and say, I'm looking at a guy who's putting up 14. He's putting up, Kyle said, 18 since returning from his butt injury, and he lets the game come to him. And I'm seeing DeMar DeRozan do his thing. I'm seeing Malik Monk do his thing. And I'm envisioning a world where there are some things that I could get back from De'Aaron Fox if he's not sure he wants to be in Sacramento. That is one way to look at this. The other way to look at this is what we just talked about. Okay, De'Aaron's not on the team and it's Stephon Castle. I don't know. One of these young guys, but maybe isn't the circled dude every single night. And now, what does Malik Monk look like with Asar Thompson on him? What does Andrew Wiggins look like? Or what does Malik or DeMar DeRozan look like with Andrew Wiggins on them? So I think that is the internal conversation that I'm having when certain people do say this could be making De'Aaron Fox more expendable. But the other side of it is, well, you have to realize if Amen Thompson was on Malik or DeMar DeRozan and your third option is Reed Shepherd, right? Or whatever young dude that you get in that deal, it might not look how it's looking right now. And that's the stuff that the box score is not showing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I feel like there's a lot of conversation of like, kind of like you're mentioning a little bit in there that like, well, Malik could just step into this De'Aaron role, you know, and it's just not that simple. Like Malik is, I think that if we had the same level of expectations for Malik as we did De'Aaron, that his inconsistencies would be highlighted a lot.
Yeah.
And right now it's fine because it's the role that he's in. But like there's stretches where Malik has like 3 really bad turnovers.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know about this one, you know, this isn't Malik's night right now. And that's fine. That with how this roster is constructed and what his expectation is on a night-to-night basis, like you're saying, that looks differently if he's a number one. And that's not to say that he couldn't be better. That's absolutely in the cards. And we've seen him have big games. But I think that De'Aaron does a better job than Malik of like impacting the game no matter, even if he's not scoring. Defensively, De'Aaron is, I think, having one of his best seasons on that side of the ball. The turnovers that they force in that third quarter yesterday was a huge part of that turnaround. And I thought De'Aaron helped with that a bit for sure. Not that Malik didn't. Malik was actually a factor there as well. But I think it's a different level when you are that number one on a scouting report.
Yeah.
And when you climb up higher there. And Tyrese Halliburton is the prime example. You know, I think back to when those guys played together, Fox and De'Aaron would joke like, well, Lou Dort was the one guarding me.
Right.
You know, so that kind of helped Tyrese get his 30 or whatever. And now Tyrese looks like he's struggling a little bit at times when he's dealing with the like of those guys.
De'Aaron said that?
De'Aaron said that back when Tyrese was here. Yeah. Because Tyrese had a big game and it was in good fun. It's not like it's just a little reminder.
Sure,
it's De'Aaron being like, hey, well, you know, Lou Dort was guarding me. Just saying.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down, and the whole De'Aaron Fox conversation, it's become even more volatile with the Rich Paul thing coming up, and a lot of people are looking at De'Aaron Fox a little bit differently. Sacramento is a proud city. A lot of them love De'Aaron Fox. A lot of them, but as soon as there's a question as to whether you love us back, which I don't think there should be a question, De'Aaron is just, he put out what he's going to put out. I still believe that him saying that actually helped the organization more so than being quiet and then, hey, I'm actually at it. You know what I mean? If he really wanted to bounce, would he have said anything at all? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's just things are getting looked at a little bit differently. And he's under more of a microscope now. And I think it's easy to see Malik flourishing, DeMar DeRozan doing his thing. And I fall victim to it as well. But, thinking about some of these dudes and tonight, right? Who's we're talking to Ryan Blackburn of Mile High Sports at 1:30. But the best defender on the Nuggets is Braun?
Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon. I don't know that Aaron Gordon's a little bigger. I don't know if they're going to put him
Aaron, yeah. Like Peyton Watson.
Yes, Peyton Watson, somebody like that. De'Aaron's going to get their best guard defender even today. And Malik continues to eat off that. And it's just, what it reminds me of? And Chris Watkins, he's under the weather. Brendan gave him something. I don't know what it was. But you know what it reminds me of? We got to get to a break. Justin Jefferson. I know the Vikings turned into a pumpkin, but you had Addison balling out. I think TJ Hawkinson went for 140 one game. Yeah. And Justin Jefferson kind of sat there and said, well, if
they got two on me.
They got two on me. So if my other dudes are going to eat, they're going to eat. I'll get mine when I get mine. He eventually didn't, but we understand that situation. Now somebody's going to text in, are you saying De'Aaron Fox is Justin Jefferson? Please understand the context. All right, Brendan, let's understand the context of how bad this bench needs help, and let's talk about it on the other side. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Sactown Sports.
Brenden Nunes joins us. Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports, taking up to 2 p.m. Brendan, Moses Moody and Trace Jackson Davis had 22 points combined. Guy Santos had 16 off the bench. The Kings sit at 18 bench points, and Kevin Huerter has basically been phased out of this rotation. He didn't even get to 6 minutes last night. Devin Carter is a rookie. He played 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Trey Lyles, decent game. It's still happening. And Keon Ellis, 21 minutes. He had a Tony Snell for a lot of those minutes, and then he heated up towards the end of his time. The good thing about last night, as the Kings did end up winning the game, is that it still highlighted a lot of issues that the Kings have. And Doug can motivate a lot, but there's no way to motivate another win. Can he motivate Monty McNair to add another wing to this team? I know there's been a holdup, and I don't want to get into the back and forth with some of the prognosticators and news breakers about the Cam Johnson thing. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But all I know is this bench is still not good enough. It's just not, Brendan. It's not. And I don't think we can just continue to live this lie, even though the Kings are 10-2 under Doug Christie, to think that they are doing anything of note if they don't add something else to the bench.
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting much from Kevin Huerter right now, who's also not playing many minutes. So I'm sure that
he's unplayable. He's unplayable.
It's been tough. He played a decent stretch the first quarter, and I think going into the second, and then hardly played from that point on. When he's not playing that much, I just don't expect that much from Kevin Huerter on a night-to-night basis right now at all.
That was the whole thing, right?
I expect it to be bad, to be honest.
The rhythm thing, and I get it. And now they got to move this guy because it's only gotten worse. These are that 5 minutes and 48. That's courtesy minutes.
Yeah,
that's we respect.
That might have all been in one stretch.
I think
and then
it was.
He didn't play again after. Yeah,
and I watched him on the screen, Brendan, as he's walking off onto the bench. He didn't even get to 6 minutes, Brendan.
Yeah.
And again, here's the crazy thing. And I understand when you're down, it's hard to play some of your bench guys, right? Because you don't trust them. We talked about, Devin Carter's going to take his minutes. Devin Carter played 3 minutes. Right. So nobody took the minutes. He's just not playing bench players beside, if your name is not Keon Ellis or Trey Lyles. That's not sustainable. It was never sustainable.
Yeah. Your starters are playing well enough right now that you're able to get away with it. They were just totally cooking in yesterday's game outside of maybe De'Aaron when it came to that point total. But you do need more. I think it's something that we've known about this team for years now, it feels like, and that's why that they're going to continue to be active in trade conversations here as the February 6th deadline gets a little bit closer. And it's really that forward depth. Man, like every time you go down the list of the guys that are playing,
right,
and it's Keegan Murray and Trey Lyles are the only forwards on the team. And Trey Lyles, you don't know what you're getting every single night. And I think that he's a good player. He's doing, I think he's playing a fine role for an 8th, 9th guy.
Yes.
In how much you're going to have random explosions in nights where
he's your
17.
He's your 7th.
Exactly. And he's probably part of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're talking Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter are the common, salary matching purposes in any outgoing deal. So that's just another guy that you have to replace. And he's also somewhat of your backup center outside of maybe you're going Alex Len at times, which is why I think backup center is also being mentioned as something that they need here. Going into the deadline, if you're going to move Trey while you get a Kyle Kuzma, John Collins, Cam Johnson, whatever it may be. But you need more from that bench for sure. And even if you wanted to say that when you make the trade, maybe that means Malik then comes off the bench again, and that makes your bench unit look a little bit better.
Right.
But I do think we can get a little caught up in like the numbers of just straight up how many points is the bench giving you. But last night was one of those of like, damn, Devin Carter didn't even really give you much, on either end of the ball. Kevin Huerter is also doing too much now in his minutes. He's taking these like sidestep threes or a midi he took yesterday.
I said, Brenden.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
We're sitting next to each other. And it's just like, gosh.
That's what we're on now, Kev.
Yeah.
But I don't even, honestly, I would be doing the same thing.
Yes,
I'm trying to prove myself.
It'd be hard not to. I was playing 2K last night. I didn't get a shot in the first quarter. I let it fly in the second, man.
He was going full DeMar DeRozan in the second quarter.
Absolutely.
Just shot after shot. I did have a question because you mentioned the backup center thing. It feels like whenever that comes up, it's like backup center and Jonas Valanciunas are like synonymous in conversations. Shouldn't there kind of be like an exit ramp somewhere other than Valanciunas? Because if they trade for a backup center, they just need someone who's going to play like 9 minutes a game, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that Valanciunas is maybe I see the logic for sure. And it wouldn't be me expecting him to play alongside Domantas Sabonis or anything, maybe on rare occasions, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that other names are probably going to be part of that conversation as well, for sure, that aren't flashy and going to be thrown around in trade rumors. Like Day'Ron Sharpe is somebody that I've heard is potentially in conversations as part of a Cam Johnson deal, backup center, right, young guy in Brooklyn over there as well. Or like Mark Richards is somebody that seems to be available a little bit out there. So I think that they for sure will be monitoring other names. And, those aren't names necessarily where I think you're going to see reports of rumors of who's talking to who about what.
Yeah. Let's talk about the trade market on the other side.
Real quick, my bad. Isaac Jones is still kind of sitting there.
And he's been cooking.
I think he has like 70 in 2 straight games here, it combined over the 2 games.
Has he gotten any non-garbage time in the Doug Christie era?
That's a good question. Not that I remember. No.
Yeah.
But I think that part of that also could be that you only have so many games for him with him being a 2-way contract. And it wouldn't surprise me if after the deadline settled that they decide to make him a full-term contract. And then all of a sudden, hey, maybe this is our backup center.
Well, and we'll talk about it more on the other side. But, the one thing about winning and losing, you obviously look at adjustments when you lose. I think what we're seeing right now from the Kings is that even when they don't play great, even though they're still sniffing out these W's, we haven't seen as many adjustments. And I get what you're saying about the Isaac Jones thing, but should they be more proactive and just, figure out the amount of games, things like that with an Isaac Jones? Because, you won last night, but they didn't have Draymond. They didn't have Kuminga. And Brenden, I don't know if you remember Street Fighter. I said they were just spamming the Chun-Li kick and just double teaming. I mean, I don't think that was a great lockdown defensive performance as a whole. There was nobody else to guard.
Yeah.
There was nobody else to guard. Tonight is going to be a different beast.
Yeah, you're talking about like spamming a move though, but if they can't stop that, I'm gonna keep doing it.
No, and I agree. I'm just saying most nights you're not going to be able to do that, and we'll see what happens. I am excited to see Keegan on Aaron Gordon, because you remember what happened with DeMar DeRozan on Aaron Gordon the last time the Kings played the Nuggets. More Brenden Nunes, Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports, taking up to 2 p.m. DJ LED, Kyle Ledbetter behind the glass for us. If you missed our club, Sactown, you can rewind on the YouTube. Check that out on the Sactown Sports app as well. Had a lot of fun. That was at 10:15.
Eventually, it's going to be up on my Twitter too.
That's right.
I don't pay for premium, so it'll only be part of it. But still.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Joined by Brenden Nunes. 30 more minutes with him. Brenden, where are you at with this with these trade conversations? I know we're going to have on Evan Sidery tomorrow, and I know there has been a campaign launched. In the time that we booked Evan Sidery, a campaign was launched, and I'm going to ask Evan about this, between the Kings fan base and Evan, the reports that have come out from him. Then you have Mark Stein basically saying that there's been no movement on the Cam Johnson front with the Sacramento Kings because of that price tag. Where are you at as far as what the Kings should do? What are you willing to give up, and all that stuff? Real quick, here it is. There have been no trade talks between the Kings and Nets regarding Cam Johnson in weeks. League source told that to Mark Stein, and that dropped. That was yesterday afternoon. So a lot happening back and forth. But where are you at with all this, Brenden?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Cam Johnson, I think that it's interesting because it's probably a high asking price, which is where it gets a little iffy, right? If Devin Carter is part of the conversation, I think it's hard to say yes to that. Mm-hmm. If we're talking unprotected first round picks, that's a tough thing to just move on from. Yeah. You know, if we're talking, say it's 2028, for example, like you don't know what the team's going to look like at that point. Yeah. The only guy that you feel comfortable saying is going to be on the roster is Sabonis at that point. Maybe Devin Carter, I guess. Keegan Murray. So I guess you have a couple there, but things change very quickly. You don't know what's going to go on with De'Aaron Fox this offseason. So it's a risky position to be in, and you don't want to. I think that we've seen this team be very. I've always used advantageous, this front office, as a descriptor for them, because they jump on deals that are lower asking prices than I think what are typical, which is why John Collins stands out to me, a guy that you could maybe get for a couple second round picks. You know,
but do they have any?
They have two available to them. Yeah. It's one, or I believe it's two, but it's one or two that you could work with, and you can get interesting if you wanted to try to figure out how to get some other second rounders included in a deal as well. Say it's 3-team trade, somebody gets rerouted somewhere and things like that. So I tend to think that Cam Johnson is just going to be a little bit too expensive for them, but that's also obviously dependent on what other teams are offering, and it's all comparative and relative, right? From Brooklyn's perspective. So I would be surprised if Cam Johnson didn't end up being too much out of their price range. But there's a reason that he makes a lot of sense. That's why I do tend to lean towards like the John Collins of the world, though, when we're talking what they might do this deadline.
But you're still, because I know, and like you said, you've always kind of understood why Monty has preached patience, but also just being prepared patience, right? And being prepared to make a move. But there is no, hey, they're 10-2. There's no world where they shouldn't make a move, correct?
No, because like it's fine. They're rolling right now, but this is the same team that just was, what were they, 13-19, something along that range. And obviously that was before the Mike Brown change going into Doug Christie. But I don't think that this isn't a team that's winning 80% of their games for the rest of the season. Yeah. You know, I think just being realistic, and we don't find out a lot about, I think, guys until they go through tumultuous situations, and we haven't seen Doug deal with much adversity yet. Right. You know, and you could say obviously that these late comebacks, an 18-point comeback against the Warriors. They've had big comebacks, a front-to-back win against the Warriors, the double overtime game against Miami. Like, yes, you're overcoming adversity on a game-to-game basis, but as you start losing, how does your messaging sound? You know, and so I still think we have a lot to learn about this team, and they need to improve. We talked about the bench production. That needs to be better. And if you want to eventually take this next step and still try to convince De'Aaron to stick around, this team needs to be better if they really want a chance of competing somewhat in the postseason.
Are you a bit surprised? And I know these rookies, a lot can happen. And Devin Carter has been injured, right? Obviously, it took him all this time to be able to play with the shoulder situation. And now he's had some other injuries where he was out questionable. He gets 3 minutes last night. And I am curious your thoughts on including somebody in the not fully untouchable talks, but hey, we'd rather not move this guy. Maybe I'm being a little bit prisoner of the moment as far as soon as you start playing, you need to be making a large impact. But is it not a little interesting that they're not willing to move a guy, but this dude is getting like 3 minutes a night here and there? Does that have anything to do with De'Aaron Fox and that question mark? Because to be completely honest with you, when I watch Devin Carter, I don't really see a point guard. I'm gonna be honest with you. If De'Aaron Fox moves on, Malik Monk would be the main point guard. They would be looking for a backup. Devin Carter looks like a combo guard to me. We were just talking about Josh Hart during the break, just a scrappy guard, right? A more guard-centric GP2, if you will, and probably with a higher ceiling. But I'm a little bit confused here. I know he's still getting used to the NBA, but you're not moving Devin Carter, but he's not really playing that much either. Do they really think he's going to be one of those dudes you can't move and you possibly lose De'Aaron Fox? I'm kind of struggling with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, excuse me, it's the fact that he's played 8 NBA games. Like that's really what it is.
I get it. You know? I get it.
And there's encouraging aspects. There's only so much that you've seen so far, though. And I think it's about more so like what they've seen in practice, his mindset, and sort of just speaking with him. The shot looks encouraging so far, I think. And you see it defensively.
Brenden, he needs touch on those floaters, the layups.
He does. That's something he was really good at in college, though. And I think that's one of the big adjustments to the NBA and where you're seeing it a lot, because he was forcing a lot, especially yesterday. It was pretty tough in it was only a couple of minutes there. But struggling to finish over, I want to say it was Kevon Looney at the time. And it's just, that's the bigs in the NBA are so much different than the NBA. I was talking, or than college, even the G League. I was talking to Mason Jones about this in the locker room yesterday, actually, because we were talking about how Isaac Jones has been going off recently. And he was like, it's just so much different for bigs.
Right.
The bigs in the G League even suck.
Yeah.
Because any good big is going to make it to the NBA.
Right.
You know, and he's like, and there's so many good guards down there because it's just overcrowded.
Right.
When it comes to the amount of talent. So, it's the difference in attacking NBA bigs is just something that's going to be an adjustment. Defensively, I think getting used to people's tendencies when you're guarding some of these best players is going to be a huge part of this. So I think it's been 8 games for Devin Carter. And I think that there is a level of belief in what he can be long-term. And that doesn't make him untouchable. He's not part of that conversation. It's just, this is a guy you just drafted in the lottery. You were surprised he was there at your pick in the first place, potentially because this injury, obviously.
Right.
But you know, you're going to have like 7 years of team control of this guy.
No,
is another big part of it.
Yeah.
We were just talking about like who's going to be on the team in 2028. This is one of the few guys that you can be like, oh, this guy's going to be around.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So there's a lot of value in that. And you could also say that makes him valuable in a trade for sure. So maybe that comes up. And this is also a team that chose to trade Tyrese Halliburton, and partially because that meant they didn't have to give up any pick assets, you know? So what if the Brooklyn trade ends up being, hey, we don't actually have to include any picks, but we do include Devin Carter? I don't think that's the case. It seems like Brooklyn wants more, but just saying that's the case, I could see in a hypothetical world where they could pull the trigger on something like that if it meant that they were saving other assets and that's why Devin was in a deal. So I don't think he's untouchable, but I think it's been 8 games, and there's a lot of reason for optimism about what he can be in the NBA, and they got like a whole lot of team control with this guy.
Well, and again, a night like tonight, they get in at 4 a.m. this morning, and you're dealing with the Nuggets team that has been red hot. I think they're either 7-3 or 8-2 their last 10 games. This might be a night where it's, hey, young buck, you played 3 minutes last night. Let's see what you can do tonight. As a lot of the starters might be laboring. I'm looking here
in Denver.
In Denver, 39 minutes for 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan, 34 minutes for Keegan Murray, 38 minutes for Domantas Sabonis, 37 minutes for Malik Monk, 36 minutes for De'Aaron Fox. You talk about that bench, it's going to have to do something tonight if the Kings are going to take care of business. Let's talk about this road trip. Brenden gives his thoughts on what the Kings are going to do. 6 games on the road, including a Knicks game, Sixers, Timberwolves, Thunder. Let's go ahead and predict those records on the other side. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Your flagship station for the Bean Team, Sactown Sports.
Brenden Nunes has been hanging with us, Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Brenden, we talked about this yesterday as we're watching the Pacers and Spurs in Paris. We were talking about how Wemby is coming. I always make the joke, Wemby is coming like winter is coming in Game of Thrones. And I use this to say that the Kings should be, if you want to keep De'Aaron Fox, you should be hyper aggressive right now. That's how I see it, because I know the Thunder are outstanding right now, but they're still unproven. After the Thunder, I don't really trust the Rockets. I'm sorry. They don't have a closer. The Grizzlies, I guess they do have experience, but they still haven't gone to the finals or anything like that. You have the Nuggets, who are the Nuggets. It seems pretty open right now. Where are you as far as how aggressive you would be if you're the Sacramento Kings right now? Because you never know one thing that, whether in all of sports, they did the same thing with Dan Marino. He went to a Super Bowl. Nobody really felt bad for him because, he'll be back. Look how good he is. He never won one, right? And people have done that with Lamar. Lamar still hasn't won one. And you just never know what's going to happen. And I say all that to say, if you look at the Kings and where the Western Conference is now, I get it with those picks that are playing AAU right now, but we don't know what the West is going to look like next season. The Timberwolves, they make a lot of moves. They're going to sit there and say, we made the wrong move, and they are going to try to correct this. The Warriors, they're about to cook this season and do something. I don't know what the Lakers are going to do. All these teams have plans on doing something. The Spurs are going to make a move, as Wemby will now be in year 3. The Rockets are looking for a guy. There's a part of me that thinks, why not be really aggressive now, assuming that you're going to be the West is not going to look like this next season. You're not just going to sit there and let OKC do this every year.
Well, OKC maybe.
They might just do it anyway, but
right.
The number 2 is not going to look like
Oklahoma City has 4 first-round picks next year.
Take Oklahoma City out of it.
Right.
Everybody else it's not going to look like this next season.
Yeah, I think that the top 4 right now are obviously in their own tier. Well, OKC really by themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you got that, like you mentioned, Houston, Memphis, Denver, that I think all stand out. But there's no reason to think that you couldn't beat, I would really say Houston specifically in a first-round series. You mentioned them not having a closer. I think Jalen Green's played phenomenally recently and kind of emerging as like, every once in a while he'll have a stretch of like, wait, maybe he could be. Maybe he could be, you know? And he's on one of those right now. So I think that you do have to be aggressive in giving yourself a chance. Like DeMar DeRozan was just talking about how much he hates the play-in and that they want to be above that. And obviously making a move helps project you there. You're 1 game behind the 5th seed right now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. You're also only 1 game behind or ahead of the 10th seed. So there's 2 games between 5 and 10 right now in the Western Conference. And so I think it's really about trying to solidify yourself as the top of that group rather than, I don't think that there's any move in my mind that's like, all right, this team is a championship contender right away.
I don't think so.
But if you can get into the second round of the playoffs and have a competitive second round, then you do have positive momentum going into next season, and maybe that means you can mess with something in the off season and try to move certain guys around, or maybe you're thinking that internally we're going to get better with Keegan and Devin Carter. Is Keon going to get better? A lot of the core guys are still pretty young, and we've seen them get better. Domas is taking a big step as a 3-point shooter this year. Saw De'Aaron take a step last year. So I think it's about making sure that you can be competitive in a postseason series, because you need to start building off that.
Right.
And so I think continuing to trend upwards and on that positive trajectory is just what you're aiming for right now. And you need to make a move in order to do that. I would say so.
Yeah. And speaking of where the Kings are at right now, their next 6 games, Brenden, at Nuggets, at Knicks, at Nets, at Sixers, at Thunder, at Timberwolves. Let's discuss your prediction and my prediction and Kyle's prediction as to what the Kings will do. Everybody's saying the easy answer here is 3 of 3 or 3 and 3. I don't even know. I think that is easy, but that still require, if we're picking out the 3, it's Nets, Sixers, obviously, but then everybody's saying, right, out of those 4, you're going to beat one of those teams. You'll either beat the Nuggets, Knicks, Thunder, Timberwolves. Are you sitting at 3 and 3?
I think so. I'm still very skeptical, though. Like, I don't know if you remember, but last road trip, I was sitting up here being like, I don't know, man, they might go 0 and 3.
Yeah.
And then they went 3 and 0 for what it's worth. So I'm glad to be wrong. But I'm a little skeptical of, maybe that Minnesota game doesn't go great. You absolutely should take care of business against Brooklyn and Philadelphia. I think those should be no question wins. There's not any just win that you're just walking into in the NBA. You never really know. They
did remember that national game last season where they got beat down by the Sixers without Embiid?
Yes.
So,
yes,
different team. They're different
for sure.
team.
Yeah.
But I'm worried, man. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that this is one of those stretches where we're going to find out a lot about this team, and specifically that OKC game. Like, we're talking about how much can you compete truly in the Western Conference. And obviously that's the juggernaut right there. That's your meter test to see how you really can stack up. So I think it's a big one to see how they do going into that one. You're going to have a day rest. I think the Denver game today should tell you a lot too. I know it's the second night of a back-to-back, but these are the ones you kind of got to buck up and show that you can remain competitive for. But they've shown a lot of fight, togetherness, and just, playing for each other throughout this stretch that makes me think that they can be competitive in pretty much all of these games. And, it's hard to bet that they're going to keep rolling to this extent, though. Like 10 of the last 11 is ridiculous for this Kings team right now. I think I'm going to say 4 and 2, though.
4 and 2.
I think I'm going to say 4 and 2.
Okay.
I don't feel great about it.
I agree with Brennan, but feel more confident about it.
There you go.
Well, I'm looking here, and I'm not trying to be negative here because I'll get accused of that.
I don't blame you.
This Nuggets game, the Kings under Doug Christie, they've definitely tried to right some of their wrongs. And we all remember that crazy implosion with 2 minutes left against the Nuggets. And that was with no Keegan Murray. So they had an opportunity to beat the Nuggets without Keegan Murray. So I think there could be some juice tonight with the Kings understanding that they did drop one against the Nuggets. They should be 1-0 against the Nuggets this season. But the Nuggets are, and you know what's funny? The Nuggets were playing much worse at that time. The Nuggets are actually rolling now.
Yeah.
So I'm torn on that one. They haven't beat the Knicks in what feels like forever. They got owned by the Knicks last season at home and in New York. The second time in New York, I think that's when Malik and Herter were hurt. It was towards the end of the season, but they got owned. They owe the Nets. They lost to the Nets at home. Okay, Jordy came home and beat the brakes off the Nets. Let's not forget that. And that was when Dennis Schroeder and Nick Claxton did not play.
Cam Thomas had 34.
Yeah, it was
Noah Clowney.
They were chucking, okay? The Sixers, flip a coin if Joel Embiid's playing or not. I wouldn't sleep on them. The Thunder, they're the Thunder. And the Timberwolves, it feels like the Timberwolves are I don't know what their record is. When is the last time the Timberwolves got to play the Trailblazers? I feel like they have a tough game every game. They play the Warriors 18 times. Either the Warriors, the Mavs, somebody like that. They've had a tough go this season, and they've beat the Kings a couple times. Kings finally got them. That could go either way. That was the game where they went to overtime when De'Aaron had 60. I don't know, man. I want to be positive, but give me the Nets. Give me the Sixers. Those are W's.
What if we said like have to win at least how many? The 2?
3.
Have to win at least 3?
I think if you want to actually start to avoid the play-in, you need 3. Right. It's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
Because 17 out of 23 are on the road. I don't know who we got to look at who the other road games are, but this is 6 of those 17.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like we mentioned, 2 games between 5 and 10 in the West.
You need 3.
Yeah.
And the Timberwolves, yeah, I mean, they got but they're not world beaters, and you've beat them. So you need 3. I can't go 4. I want to go 4-2. I want to ride with you guys, but I'm struggling here. I'm going 3-3.
I don't blame you.
And I'll be happy with 3-3, by the way.
Yeah, I think that there's positive momentum right now for sure. Like I mentioned, guys playing for each other. I think the level of belief is just extremely high with this group. They're fighting a way that I think that they were in that initial Beam Team season, where no matter how much they were down in a game early, you felt like they were going to come back at some point. And that's how I feel with this group right now, and they've definitely been proving it. So I think there's reason for optimism to keep the good times rolling, but just like you went straight from a 6-game losing streak to a 7-game winning streak, things change really fast, and it can go both ways. So not the easiest trip, but after you come back, which they're going to be on the road a lot, but after that trip, you do get Orlando at home, but then it's a little kind on the schedule. You go to Portland, and you're at home against New Orleans, then you go to Dallas, which not the easiest game, obviously, but then you go to New Orleans for 2 games in a row, a back-to-back, little vengeance. They're
getting healthier.
They are rolling a little bit right now.
7-3 their last 10.
They are rolling a little bit right now. But like I said, so after you come back, Orlando, Portland, New Orleans, Dallas, New Orleans, Golden State, Charlotte, Utah. Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
Nothing's a walk in the park.
Right. But I'm saying just tread water during this break, and then we can during this road trip, and then we can see what happens next. That's Brenden Nunes. Go check him out, Sactownsports.com. Great work that he does for us, the brains of the operation. Go check him out on X, on Blue Sky, on Red Sky, on Green Sky, all social media. That's Brenden Nunes, our Sactown Sports Kings Insider. Brenden, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
On the other side, it is time. Be ready. Kings Nuggets preview. Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports.
3. The only place you'll